Hey, folks, welcome back to Christians and Crypto. My name's Matt, and it is good to see you. We haven't done this in a while. My buddy Ray is going to jump in. It is good to see you. Good morning. It is 7:45 a.m. Central Texas time, and just was inspired to share a couple things with you today. A lot has been processing. We've got Pulse Chain launch, and bridges are open, and there's a lot of thinking about the future. I have a feeling you're probably thinking about the future if you're in the Pulse chain and you're in crypto and you're looking at what's happening in the world. And that's what I wanted to share with you because this is such a pivotal time for us as those who believe and are called to something. And that's what I wanted to talk to you about today is just being, I spent so much time with Steve Saggs. And if you have missed on this channel, I think I've streamed to this channel as well as to Crypto Heartbeat, um, all of the 16 hours with Steve Staggs. And if you haven't followed that, it's worth it. So if you're interested in kind of understanding the perspective of what's going on and how you fit into all that. And of course, I recognize the fact that the people are at different stages of all this. Some people are just like Christians and crypto. How does that fit together? Um, but just to give you an understanding, this is a time of transfer. This is a time where we're finding ourselves seeing a massive shift in resourcing. And if you think about this, I've come to tremendous revelation of understanding why we find ourselves in these times and why is it difficult and why are we called to um, build community and love one another and embrace this tool of the blockchain for good, animate it for good. And that's really the core purpose I've got. And literally last night, as I was just seeking the Lord, I just said, share love and build community. That's what I sense is just what we have to do. We need to share love and build community. And it's kind of a natural outcropping of sharing and being thoughtful of one another. But this is such a pivotal time. And of course, we're on this like beginning stages of the Pulse chain. And for those of you who don't know, Pulse chain, new Ethereum fork just launched. Bridges are open, things are just jam packed. And just the thought process. We started the Compassion Cartel years ago now. And now it's time that we really look at this as it relates to purpose in our life. But I'll share with you that perspective here in a minute, but let's bring in Mr. Ray. Mr. Ray, what's up, buddy? How are you, man?
Hello.
Are
Good.
you like standing in the middle of the Sombrero Galaxy or something?
Yes, I think it's the Andromeda Galaxy
It's
and
Andromeda, yeah.
Andromeda. And I'm on a carpet, so I'm like flying on a carpet.
It is like a magic carpet in your
And if I
head.
move,
It's
yeah, if
so
I move my
funny.
hand, other objects show up.
That's nice. I feel like we're like back to like day one of streaming.
Or
Oh
those
my
days.
goodness. Yeah. Plexican, good to see you. Top of the morning to you, Matt. Good to see you. Good morning, Casey Hex. I'm stuck in traffic and this comes up meant to be. There you go. Right side up has been the best. Yeah. So right side up with Steve Staggs, Ray and I. So Ray and I are best buddies and we work together and pretty much every day we have a conversation like this where we're like, hey, what's going on? And usually it's just sharing the pains of the day or the evening, right, Ray?
Yeah.
It's so,
Yes.
but it's more transparent than this, right? Ray's like, I gotta be careful what I say. But you know, I hope that you have a friend that you can, share with and someone that encourages you. And so the whole point of this stream is really why you, why now? And of course, Ray, you're in that situation too. And we've been dreaming about this for 2 years. And here we are, and it's just the beginning, right? But what has kept us going, I think, is the hope that, you know, Jesus is doing something really tremendous in the world. And he's been doing that since the beginning because it was all created for him and by him. And I really think that this time with Steve Staggs, Ray, has helped me understand or get get reordered to the fact that Jesus isn't in this mess, right? He's not surprised by any of these things that are happening. He's out in front and ahead of that. And of course, the example of that is that he's the good shepherd, right? That he's out front and we follow him and we recognize his voice. And it's funny how you hear these things so many times over your kind of Christian experience, but then you don't actually relate to the fact that, hold on, he is actually out front. And are you okay over there?
Yeah, I'm always like looking at the top of my head. So I thought I'd make
All
this
right.
a better angle.
I may have to rug you so you can get your stuff together. All right, dude. Anyway, so that's really what I wanted to talk about today is, why you and why now and why me and why Ray and why all these folks is that, if you're not someone who understands that you have a calling and a purpose in this life, right? That you're not an accident, you didn't crawl out of the ooze and become, monkey turned man. And with this transfer, it's really amazing to me that there's, I think, an opportunity for those who believe and those who have been called um, to walk into this financial world of crypto and embrace it as a tool for good. I wondered if David Lee would show up this morning. I kind of stealth announced this just on Christians and Crypto. I didn't even put it out anywhere, and nothing gets by David Lee Ray.
How is he even awake? He's usually like up until like, wee hours of the morning.
I think the bridges kept him up, right? He's just super excited. And so he's like, top of the morning to you. But good to see you, David Lee. Um, anyway, so what are your thoughts, right? I mean, this idea that Jesus is out front, he's strategic, he's the one that, this is all created for him and by him. It's all going according to plan. And I think that's hard for me sometimes because I think that a big question people ask is, why are so many bad things happening? And I'm like, hold on a second. Nothing is a surprise to the sovereign Lord of all creation, dude. Nothing's a surprise. So, in a way, it's all going according to plan. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's funny. When I was way back when I was in my early 20s, people would start asking questions and being very, very critical of who God is and all of that. And I'm like, no, you can't do that.
Right.
God's amazing. You can't question who God is. And they go, wait. And then somebody posed that same question. They said, wait a minute, isn't God big enough to know the question? And you can't go against creation because
Yep.
it's is God big enough to understand that humans have questions? And it took me a while to realize that our God is so much bigger than we think. He understands. He knows exactly where we are, on the macro level, but also on the little details of what's going on. And I mean, I've got some amazing stories to tell about my house, about my family, because of who God is. And sometimes I look and I go, I couldn't have engineered this any better myself. And I'm not that creative to where I could have put this story together in a beautiful narrative. But God does that. And he takes what little I have and makes it into something beautiful. And so I mean, it's pretty amazing. But yeah, all this stuff, it's funny because if you start listening to, and I'm on a bunch of different text threads where people are pretty, everything that comes out is oh no, there's fear of this, fear of that, and what do we have to be afraid of?
Yeah.
We are, God is going before us. He's been doing it the entire time, whether we recognized it or not.
Yeah. Well, and we're no strangers to fear, are we, Ray?
We certainly are not, sir.
We're certainly not. But and I think that that's the things that I mean, this literally this last 6 months has been such a significant I think spiritual development for me, and I believe for you. And I wanted to share that with you guys today. And I really wanted to encourage you. And I'm also going to kind of speak to some of my frustrations as well. Um, that I've seen that have been challenges, but I'm going to kind of treat it as positives versus negatives. Texican Hexican, good to see you.
Yay.
There was a funny, I don't know if you saw Danny fall out of his chair last night, but that's one of the funniest things I've ever done or had on stream. So that was pretty fun. I'll see you in June. Sweet, dude. That's so great. I'm looking forward to that. Yeah. So Gen Con's coming up, and this is a great forum. And we can talk about that here a little bit later. But thanks for being here. Appreciate you being here. So, all right. So let's jump in this. Cadium, what's going on? It's like all my favorite people in one place. Texican Hexican, Cadium, David Lee, Casey Hex, Plexican. What's going on, folks? It's great. Thanks for joining us. You know, ZZ Tesco and I, we visit every morning. And of course, I've been doing this stuff with Steve Staggs, and Ray and I process just about everything that Steve and I talk about together. And I'm going to give you the high level, and then we're going to jump into kind of your own personal calling and all of that stuff, because I want you to understand that, you know, this stuff isn't separate, right? Community is so important. And of course, let's just start at the very, very core foundation. Two most important commandments are love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, right? And love your neighbor as yourself. Well, we're neighbors, Ray, right? And all of us are, right? The fact that we've got communication tools like this is that we can literally be in community together. And I think that that's a really, really important call. And I haven't even shared this with you yet, Ray, but last night, as I was just seeking the Lord, he said, share love and build community. And I thought about this, and you know what the visual was for me? I had my eyes closed, and the visual was a heart, and it was like a blurry version of the Crypto Heartbeat logo. Isn't that cool? And it was like, and I was like, well, that's easy. And he's like, yeah, I prepared you in advance for all of this stuff. And so, folks, I want you to see the same thing, right? What am I doing? What's Ray doing? What should we be doing? The creator of the universe is on your side. And we have this choice to make between good and evil. And there are tools out there that have never been there before, everything from the blockchain to AI. And the thing to be reminded of is the fact that, you know, we animate tools for good or for evil. The key part of this whole thing is the fact that we understand now the difference between good and evil. And so we have to make choices. And one of the amazing things is it says, no temptation has seized you except what is common to man. And God is faithful. So he's always going to be able to give you a way out. So these things are common to us, right? Since the fall of man, right? Since we gave our authority away and Jesus has redeemed this, we have this opportunity to make choices. And these choices, you know, we can daisy chain these choices together and we can work together in community, right? And we see amazing, miraculous things happen. Some of it times it's just sharpening each other by encouraging one another. But at the end of the day, there is one that's prowling around, right? The devil wants to get a foothold in your marriage, wants to get a foothold in your life, and wants to distract you, right? And we see this, you know, it becomes more and more clear. But at the end of the day, if you recognize that the creator of all things, you know, Jesus, it was created for him and by him. Okay, well then let's acknowledge the fact that he's got all this stuff under control. And this is all a part of the plan. And so when we see all these difficult things or challenges, it's going according to plan. Because what I've come to understand is God isn't surprised by anything. He's not shocked. He's not reacting to things. He's actually fulfilling the whole purpose, right? And if you think of him in the Garden of Gethsemane, right? And he's literally sweating blood, right? Think about that. Just sweat, you know, and he's talking to the Father like we can literally have this conversation. And he's like, hey, if there's any other way we can do this besides me going to the cross, you know, if there's a plan B. And of course, what did the Father say to him? I would assume that what the Father said was, no, remember, this is what we planned since the beginning. I'm literally you're gonna die for yeah, you're gonna for ZZ Tesco. I almost doxed you, dude. You know what I mean? Like he for everyone. He just, and I think that that's the thing that you think about the amazing grace is that while we're still sinners, he's like, hey, I got a plan for you. And so what we see, Ray and I talk about all the time, is that it's strange how we fought the lion and the bear. Ray and I met in an elevator at church. We were moving speakers because we had a kind of a mobile church. and we've been friends since, well, for the last 23 years. And what's amazing about it is, um, I've seen Ray fight the lion and the bear, and Ray's seen me fight the lion and the bear. And sometimes we think the things that we fought and the things we thought they were all lost. Like these things, oh, this was wasted. That business didn't work. Oh, this thing was terrible. This relationship was painful. And then it constantly keeps coming back around as redeeming. And, that's one of the things that's so amazing is when you start to look at this in the context of asking Jesus, literally saying, "Hey, what do you think about this?" If he's out in front, he's not in the mess. We're in the mess, but we have to make choices and we have a shepherd and we recognize his voice. Then hold on a second. He's in this whole process of just waiting for us to come back to him to say, "All right, why don't you tell me what to do? Why don't you show me the next step?" And then all fear is lost because we have the day, right? It's today. So I was literally making a list the other day, Ray, and I said, "Jesus, what am I missing?" And he's like, "Oh, this." I'm like, "Oh, dude, thanks." Isn't it crazy? Like this idea, like, hold on a second. What if I literally walked with him and talked with him, right? And it's so funny. The old hymns, Ray. I walk with him and talk with him. And I'm like, hold on a second. People have known about this for a while. I'm just kind of coming around to this. And it's so encouraging to understand that, hey, I don't hear the audible voice of God, but I do recognize the fact that this time that we live in is very consequential and that he's prepared us for it. And it's not just about money and crypto. It's more about, hey, he is supernatural and cares about everything from your house, Ray, to your marriage, to relationships and all that, and is calling us to basically be conformed into his likeness. And that to me is so humbling to think that, hold on a second, it's like made in his image, conformed to his likeness. And this process by which we do it is in the context of community. Because you spoke it into my life as if literally the voice of Jesus, Ray. And I feel like that's the thing that we need to recognize is that a big part of our job in community, loving each other, is to breathe life into people. And that's a huge piece of it. What do you think about that, Ray? Like breathing life into people, encouraging people and reminding them. That's so important and you see it throughout the scriptures.
Well, man, and that's such a big thing to unpack. But I will tell you this though: God has gifted you for this, and I think all of us in the stream would agree that if there's somebody who uh, could bring people together, we always laugh about it being that we're all just a bunch of bad news bears that come together and have a leader that just happens to be you.
The mighty
And
ducks.
yeah, but there's a way that you communicate to us that gives us hope, and it's through Jesus giving us hope because and I always go back. Remember way back at the beginning. This is so when we first started working, we were in a loft,
Yeah.
and
Loft
and
apartment
so I
in
remember
downtown Dallas.
Matt comes up and he says, "Okay, guys, listen, we're not going to be here anymore. We have space, downtown Dallas where we're going to go, with our company. We're subleasing it from another group." And I remember like we watched a VeggieTales video about Joshua.
Yeah, I remember
Do you
that
remember
exact
that?
time. Yeah, I do. Like
So I
like
wrote
it
that.
was yesterday.
It was like it was yesterday, and it was kind of a pivotal time because we were moving out of where we were into a new era, and um, I think about what you're talking about, and I think about building community and loving people. But I mean, what else can we do that God doesn't? That's apart from what God wants, because if that's what's God's clearly gifted you in that way, but He's also giving you the tools and the audience and the people and all of us who we're happy being lieutenants, under bosses in
Yeah.
in this in this whole part of it that says, hey, we're glad to be in this together. So I was challenged this weekend by our pastor. Basically, he said there's a difference between belief and faith, in that I just kept thinking about that over and over again. Faith is kind of for me in the things that haven't happened yet. So I have faith that God's going to be in the next step, no matter what that is. I have faith that Jesus knows what's going on in the next step. All the stuff with devolution and the government and all the stuff, the powers that be. I can't control all of that, but Jesus knows what's going on. So, and going back to the story of Joshua, and I feel like I'm a little all over the place, but that's why you don't have me on stream.
It's all
So,
right. It's all good.
um,
The Spirit of God at work.
so the Israelites come out of Egypt, and I can't imagine what it would have been like to have seen all of those plagues. And in a period of 2 weeks, it takes to walk from. Yeah, it was such a great verse.
Keep going, dude. Joshua.
So the children of Israel walk through the Red Sea. They get to the other side. They're like, okay, now what do we do? Okay, God says, well, I need you to go over here. So they make a 2-week journey. And they said, well, I'm going to give you this land. So I'm going to send. So, well, we need to send spies in first. Okay, like God hasn't already been providing for the past couple of weeks anyway. Or, we haven't seen a cloud leading us in the desert or fire by night. I mean, that's got to be crazy, right?
Can you imagine that? What that would like? Wow.
I try to imagine all the time, but I can't even think about how cool that would be because it's not. It seems so supernatural to me, And not only that, but there's manna, so he was providing for them every day. So, but they get there and they go, well, we need to send spies in. Let's go see what this land is about before we cross this river. And how many spies go in? 12. How many, and they come in, oh, there's grapes the size of, watermelons and, like it's such abundant provision over there. But there are these giants and they're huge and we can't take them over. And God's like, what? Don't you know this is all, I've been putting all of this into place for you. He didn't quite say that, but that's kind of the way I would say it today.
Yeah.
Is that all these things are like falling into place, like the song. And 2 spies came back and said, we can do this, right? Joshua and Caleb. They said, yes, we can do this. And then 10 of them said, no, no, we can't do it. And yeah, it's interesting because I give into that fear all the time of I can't believe this is happening. What am I going to do? And God's saying, no, I'm already ahead of you.
Yeah.
I'm going to bless you.
Do not lean on your own understandings, right?
That's right. And so blessing to me, I always want to be careful because I'm always like, well, it doesn't always mean I'm going to get more money. No, but it does mean that I can walk in peace, knowing that my next step in faith is because of who Jesus is, not because of who I am.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Texican Hexagon, one of my faves. For those God foreknew, he also predestined to be conformed to the image of his son, that he might be firstborn among many brothers and sisters. And I think what you're saying, Ray, it's not that happened, that it happens. There's always giants on the other side of the river, right? As just a metaphor for life. And the fact that, there's always a Red Sea and, there's always an Egypt that we're being called out of. But the promise of all of this stuff, and I think this is the big reminder, and what I really wanted to share with folks today is, you have been uniquely designed since before time began for work to be done, right? Predestined to be conformed to the image, right? And what is a son but an heir? And I think so many of us do not see ourselves as sons. And of course, the prodigal son is a perfect example of this. We've gone astray. We've wanted I want it now. I want to go my own way. I want to make my own decisions with the inheritance. But, Steve has reminded me of so many just nuances of that story is that when you come back, that's when you get the ring. And the ring is the signature of the Father. And, actually, what's funny is, this logo that's on, that is up on the stream is actually the signet ring that I wear, which is the Chi Rho, which is the beginning, the original, first symbol kind of Christ. And it's kind of this picture of crypto and, Jesus himself. And you think, why are you alive at this time? Why do you know about this crypto stuff? Why is the entire financial world changing? And what is Jesus saying to you about it and what your role is to play? And it's more about just all of these things, right? Because this isn't just, Jesus isn't just topical. He doesn't just say, well, I'm only going to use Ray because he knows how to code stuff. No, no, no. He's in absolutely, every single situation. And that's where we look at this and go, hey, I've had tremendous anxiety or fear or those things. And what's amazing about this is to say, you've been you've been chosen for a reason and a purpose. And the question is, have you asked him what it is? And that's the thing that I think has been the real big breakthrough for me is to say, I literally, a couple big things that I've been saying that have been the breakthrough and just I've seen so much fruit from. One is Jesus is alive and he speaks. Okay, have I treated him like he's a historic Jesus? And then on Easter Sunday, I'm like, he's alive. That's great. He's risen. And then the rest of the time, he's historical Jesus. No, no, no. He's alive, and he's in front, and he's out front, and he's not in this mess that we're in. And he's a shepherd, and we recognize his voice. And to think about that, he modeled out for us what we're supposed to do and how we're supposed to be, right? We're conformed to his likeness. We're created in his image and conformed to his likeness. So we get to experience this in time. And, you think about this like, one, why some people have a calling. What's my calling? What's the purpose? And, there are people that can articulate things different ways. But I think what is amazing is if you look at the temptation of Jesus, right? He comes out of the wilderness and Satan appears to him and basically says, turn these stones into bread. And he says, man does not live on bread alone, but out of every word that comes out of the mouth of God. Well, hold on a second. That's the key. So Jesus is alive and he speaks. What happened? The Peter, James, and John go up the mountain of transfiguration, right? Moses and Elijah appear, which is the law and the prophets. And they're like, dude, it's so great that we're here. Let's build you some houses, some tents. And it's like, no, 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 no. These things aren't equal. Moses and Elijah and Jesus aren't just equal people that you put in equal tents. No, and the voice comes and says, this is my son. Listen to him. So this function, it says that faith comes by hearing. We didn't see the book of the Bible really in the hands of people until after 1444 in the printing press. And so when you think about these stories of these reminders of the same thing over and over and over again, the reminders is to say, hold on a second. People have been listening to Jesus since the beginning of time because he existed and it was created by him and for him. And so I think a lot of people are misled by saying that, well, because we wrote these things down, which were the words of Jesus, right? These are the words of the Father who's guided us. This is the Creator himself. Because we've documented these things, they become a proxy for his voice in our lives. And what I've come to recognize is the fact that no, 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 no. The Bible is an amazing tool for us to literally seek and understand and be reminded. But also the Spirit of God and the voice of Jesus himself is available to us all the time. And that to me is at this core to say, hold on. All right, what if I literally did pray without ceasing? What if I did seek the voice of God? What if I asked him and said, hey, I don't know how to listen to you. Teach me how to listen to you. Teach me how to hear you. Teach me how to follow you. And Ray, you and I have seen fruit from this. Like I literally, and there's a number of things that have happened in my life that have improved things. But I think one of the great things about this is instead of, I've stopped being in my home, considering it to be another job. And I think that I realized my own choices that I was making made me an adversary in my own home. And that's a huge confession, right? Meaning I would walk in thinking, oh no, I'm coming into another job, rather than coming in and saying, hold on, no, this is the first place that you've given me authority. And I come into that as a servant now. And I literally say, Jesus, I'm not working for my wife. She ain't the boss around here. But I'm not going to lord over my authority either. So what am I going to do? You have authority over me. And so now Hey, what do you want to do, Jesus? What's next? Isn't that crazy? We could have a conversation with Jesus related to doing the dishes at home. Like he's in everything, much less this thing about, hey, what are you doing in the world as it relates to shifting the resources in the financial system? How is Babylon going to burn? What is the role that we have to play? What are you doing in this world, macro, versus literally, hey, what am I forgetting? What's next? And that to me is so incredible that we can have that conversation at all levels and he's there. What are your thoughts, Ray?
Well, this is where faith comes in. Um, my thoughts are it doesn't matter how much money I have if I'm always around somebody who's angry, if
Yeah.
I'm always angry,
Yep.
if the relationships that I truly care about in my life have zero meaning and they go away and I make people angry, or I, I, I push others or make other, basically when I extract from other people, I create a scenario where I'm the black hole
Yeah.
and I can never get enough.
Well, and you're
And,
sucking energy
and
out of
it's,
people.
and I think what I've come to realize when we talk about walking in the door and saying, Jesus, what would you have me to do? I realize how many times he's been talking to me and I've pushed it off and said, no, I want me time. I need
Yeah.
my time. I deserve my time. I want me. And then when I do that, I realize that I snap at my kids, because that's interrupting my me time. Doesn't anybody know that I want quiet and peace around here?
You're not
Uh,
selfish, Ray. We are all so selfish, man. It is
we
so
are so
amazing,
selfish
and
stinkers.
that's the thing that just Jesus reveals in us, right? We're like, "Oh, I thought I was doing this right," and then I realized, "No, no, I'm doing this wrong." But leadership
Yeah,
starts with us as men too, right?
it does. But my fear was that if I wait a minute, if I give this up to you, then I'm not going to have me time.
Right?
If I give this up to Jesus, then I'm not going to be seen as the man. I'm not going to be seen as the guy who can do anything and fix anything. I've got to stand up and pull myself up on my bootstraps and and be the guy.
Alpha.
And then, well, I mean, there's that. But Jesus is saying, no, 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 you got this all backwards, all wrong.
Mhm.
And I'm like, so you mean to tell me that when I walk in the door and the dishes aren't done, and I know I know it'd be helpful to my wife, but I don't want to do it. I'm finding now that those times are like when I don't do it, it actually produces a toxic scenario.
Mhm.
And when I do, I don't do it for credit anymore. I don't try to put things in the bank and be like, I'm storing it up because
Yeah.
they never, I they'll never see enough of what we do anyway. And my selfishness wants credit for everything. And my laziness doesn't always want to do the work for it. But I know when I'm listening to Jesus, the next thing that I do is the right thing.
Yep.
That's the faith. When I talk about having faith and going in and saying, okay, well, there's giants in the land. If even if it's as small as putting the laundry away, well, I'm not going to get credit for that. I'm going to, she better, and she's going to, no, 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 no. My motivation is to do it because it's the right thing to do. And so, yeah, and there's faith knowing that I'm doing it God's way and not my way anymore.
Yeah. Well, and it comes back to authority. I think at its very core is, there's a lot of evidence in the Word of God about authority and who are we following and who are we serving. And you think about this idea of rather than being a slave to sin, you're a slave to Jesus himself, right? That God is actually the authority over us. And this whole series of Right Side Up with Steve Staggs is really addressing this issue. And if you haven't seen that series, you ought to check it out. But this idea that all of these things are upside down, even in our home, and the irony of it is back even to the garden, is that what God had set up to be provision, right? That we would follow him, and that In him is the goodness of and purpose and all of these things in life. And what have we decided to do? We decided to go our own way because we gave our authority. So what are we doing? A serpent, an animal, speaks to a woman who speaks to a man about who God is. And that's exactly the opposite of God speaking to man who cares and loves and blesses and provides for woman and has dominion and rulership over the animals. And it's literally upside down. And when you start seeing this, it's not that you would be dominant. And I think that's the most amazing part of this whole thing is that, hold on a second, I'd much rather be under the authority and be an agent and a servant and be conformed into the likeness and to be an heir with a ring with authority and a signature. And I think that that's a big part of, if you look into, what's defined as, who can be the elders. Well, there's fruit in your life that is defining of your leadership and your understanding of who God is, right? If you're a drunkard and your kids are wild, well, there's an indication of that leadership and where the authority lies. And so many times in our homes, the culture is saying, well, the man is just the idiot. He's the Disney dad. He's just a doofus. And, this is a part of the devil's plan, is to basically marginalize the men, because if we can keep this thing upside down, I can keep these guys neutered. And here's the thing, this isn't, in my opinion, about being alpha or, working out or doing something like that. What it is to say, hold on, where's my authority come from? Who am I serving? And that's really the big part of this whole thing. Why do we even start this channel? Is to say, hold on a second. You were created uniquely before the beginning of time. You're not an accident and you've got work to do. And you happen to be in a position of resource and maturity in which you can even have this conversation. And there is a purpose and a calling. The question is, have you asked him? And I think that that's the number one thing I keep coming back to, is the simplicity of all of this. We could get into all kinds of theological discussions, but at the end of the day, all right, who's the boss? And is he out front? And do you recognize the fact that none of this stuff is a surprise to him? None of it, not a single conflict, nothing. But what really is the kingdom of God, right? And when you think about how Jesus taught us to pray, it's like, our Father who art in heaven, holy is your name, right? You are literally perfect, holy, right? Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Literally, who is the authority and what is the purpose? The purpose is that heaven and earth would become one. And I think what's so incredible about that is to say, what is your role in that plan? Because that's what he's doing, whether you're on board or not. But here's the cool thing. If you're willing to ask him, and I mean, literally ask him. I mean, ask. That's the thing that has been the huge breakthrough for me, is that many, many times I felt like the Spirit and literally God poking through the veil at me. But now I'm recognizing the fact that, hold on a second. If I just say, hey, you are the only one who has authority to speak to me. Because actually, it was really cool. KDM and I spent some time together. And one of the questions he said was, well, how do I know which is Jesus's voice and which one is Satan's voice? I don't know. He didn't say it like that, but, and I asked the exact same thing as Steve. And what's amazing to me about that is, what is your intent? Where is your heart, right? When you're seeking the Lord and you say, hey, teach me how to listen to you, he's going to work with you the way you were uniquely made, and he's going to meet you right where you are. And he's going to teach you, and you're going to learn to hear him. He doesn't just speak in words saying, Ray, do the dishes at the house. No.
No, it's usually, Matt, get your work done.
Come on. No. But that's the thing. If his yoke is easy and his burden is light, and that, provision is for the day, the beauty of this is it's not meant to be, overwhelming, but at times it's a struggle and difficulty. And I think, consider it pure joy, brothers, when facing, trials of many kinds. These are the things that refine us in life. And I think it's so difficult for us to understand that, hold on, he allows these things to happen so that we may be conformed more to his likeness. And what I love about that is that it fits in exactly with what the calling is. And so, Ray, you and I have had these discussions for years and years and years and years, where there's so many people out there who are not comfortable with what God made. They're
Right.
frustrated with themselves, and they compare themselves to people, and they say, "Well, I'm not talented like Ray is, and I don't have this skill, or I don't have this ability, and I'm not tall enough, and I don't have the right influence." And basically, we're convinced that he made a mistake. And the fact of the matter is, he hadn't made any mistakes, right? Nothing is a surprise. All this is part of the plan. And so the big question is this: do you understand why you're here? Because what you're here for is important, right? Because you are an heir, you are a son. That's what Jesus ultimately allowed us to be, is to be reconnected and to be a son. Well, what does it mean to be? Well, if we have a father, a loving father, he's not going to give you a snake or a stone, right? So what are we doing and what are we asking for? And I think that one of the biggest things is here, delight in the Lord and he will give you the desires of your heart. I used to always think that that was like the stuff I wanted, like when Lambo, I get my thing. I want this, and this. And you go, no, no, no. Delight in the Lord, and He will give you His desires, the desires of your heart. He will give you those things and align you with the things of your purpose. And Ray, you and I have seen that. Like it's amazing to me ever since we met in the elevator is to see all of the things that you've experienced. You have probably in my opinion, of any developer I've ever run into, you probably have the widest base of experience, meaning the most, like there's some people who have drilled down and like, I work on this stack and this stack alone. The things that God has enabled you to learn across the board, right? It's like, is really, really unique because we've had to just learn stuff and figure stuff out. But what's amazing is so many people want to make you feel inferior, or and this is definitely the case when it comes to developers. Everybody's bowing up on each other. But in the context of what God has made, you go, hold on a second. You prepared me. This is fighting the lion and the bear. The reason that you know so many darn languages, so many different um, platforms, so many different things, and you've dealt with so many challenges, that's preparation for the next thing. And it's not in comparison to someone else. No, it's uniquely designed and made based on you taking apart and fixing everything when you were a kid. And you go, hold on a second. You've been working since the beginning on me? Yep. You mean everyone? Yep. For this time? Yep. All right, Lord, what's the purpose? And so here's my frustration with the church, Ray. What if you walked into a church and you said, hey, I'd like to come to your church, but I want to be able to follow Jesus's voice. I want to do what he asked me to do. Is that okay with you? And the pastor would be like, of course, come on in. You could do that. That's great.
Welcome.
Yes, this is a perfect place. Of course, we want to support you listening to Jesus until you actually do what Jesus asked you to do. Because what's amazing about this is what I love about this, the fact that we've got these communication tools is this. I am not, I don't know what he's called you to do. And the things I found him that he calls us to do is so uniquely designed for us and so sometimes very subtle and sometimes very private and sometimes macro and big. But I've realized, hold on a second, I got to stop saying we're going to change the world, Ray. Like, hold on a second. No, 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 no. I need to come in line with the fact that he's already doing that. He's already changing the world and he wants to use all the skills and abilities that we have because it's a big part of dominion and ruling over this world that he has given that authority to us. And so I think about the wisdom that comes from this idea of what if we were to fan the flame of the passion that's in the hearts of those God created rather than trying to get them to fit our program. And that's what this channel is all about. Why you, why now? Because you were uniquely designed for this time, for a purpose. And he's just waiting for you to ask him, hey, what do you want me to do? Not in 50 years, not in 10 years. No, what do you have for me today? And what do you want me to understand and learn? And the thing about it is the fruit that comes from that is literally everything in your life. It will impact every single thing in your life. Everything from what we've seen at home, right? Just what we consider to be trivial things, all the way to the massive macro of saying, hold on a second, you are literally shifting the resources into the hands of your people because it says the kings of earth will be welcomed into the kingdom. They will bring their splendor into the kingdom. That's us, guys. That's us, not the kings of earth. This isn't politicians. This is us. What, the meek will inherit the earth? Yes, because he is literally shifting the resources, because he is literally in progress making heaven and earth one, building the kingdom. And we are his agents. We are those that have been conformed to his likeness, and we are doing and seeking his will. But even folks within the church, sit down, shut up, pay your bills, right? Hold on a second. No. I'm following Jesus. Okay, you can do that in the context of a local church, but also recognizing the fact that, hold on, we don't have a priest. We don't have a middleman. And that's the beauty of the blockchain, is it's a reflection of the same thing. He is an immutable contract. You engage with him and him alone. And anyone that's deterring you from listening to Jesus himself and directing your path, right? And your intent is to honor and serve and to come up underneath his authority. Get ready, folks. I mean, get ready. It is an absolute amazing experience that only continues to grow. And what does it give you? All the fruit of the Spirit, peace in your life. And it's really, in my opinion, like this breakthrough of all breakthroughs for me. Jesus is alive and he speaks. Are you listening? And he'll teach you how to listen to him. I'm not great at it. But boy, I literally last night, I literally saw this. I'm like, Jesus, what do you got? He's like, shows me the picture of the heart, and then says, hey, love others and build community. And I'm like, well, that's easy. And he goes, duh. That's what I designed you to do, dummy. And so let's not assume that it's going to be hard, that you've got to scale mountains and become someone that you're not. No, he's prepared you for this time. You fought the lion and the bear. You do not need to put on Saul's armor, Ray. Get this off of me. I'm going to use my blockchain skills instead of a sword and, right? No, 5 smooth stones, baby. You've been slinging it. You've been slinging code for years because he has designed you to do that work. And the question is, know your role and stay in your lane, bro. Listen to Jesus and walk with him, and it's amazing. Like everything will like literally fall into place. And what is the result of that? Peace, rest, purpose, alignment, satisfaction, significance. And then of course, what when things get reordered in your life and they're realigned, you're like, hold on a second, hold on. I'm not doing anything. You're doing it and I'm following you. Whew. Dude, this is like amazing. So what are we supposed to do? Listen to Jesus's voice. Don't listen to me. Don't listen to ZZ Tesco. We're just trying to encourage you. We want to fan the flame in your heart, the passion in your heart that Jesus has planted there, and say, hey, do it. Do it. What are your thoughts, Ray?
Man, that's amazing stuff. And I think I just appreciate the people that, and I think about this quite a bit, of the people who have come around us, the people in the chat, like the people who are walking with us, and just say, what would this world look like if each one of us were doing exactly that? And I usually want, my impatience makes me want results right away, but they don't always come right away. Sometimes they come later on. Like my daughter has a friend who wrote a paper, and in the paper she was talking about, in the Bible it says we have to listen to our government and do whatever they say. And my daughter said, no, there's something wrong with that. There's something wrong with that, because we have things that are given to us by God.
Mm-hmm.
And she's heard me say to her over and over again, we have certain rights given to us by God himself. We don't worship the state. We don't worship the government. We worship Jesus alone.
Yep.
And it's easy for us to look at that and say that, because it's kind of part of our Texan narrative, right? You know, it's kind of, we've been listening to Crypto Heartbeat talking about this for months now. But then to start hearing your kids say it, and then to recognize, wait a minute, there's a different spirit in that tone of just listening to whatever the government tells you to do. And then they throw Bible verses on top of it and say, see, in Romans, it said you're supposed to obey your authorities. Okay, but aren't we just supposed to obey your parents? If your parents are telling you to do something that God is telling you not to do, you have to obey Jesus first. And even in the Bible verse, it'll say, children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right.
Yeah.
Because your parents have a responsibility to be acting in the Lord. The assumption is that they're already doing that. And the assumption is that the governments are acting on behalf of who Jesus is. Now, he sets people up and deposes them and all that, and we understand that. But that's his purpose. That's what he's doing. What is it? But when you start seeing this in your kids and they start recognizing the fact that no, Jesus is God, not the government. And our kids nowadays are being taught that. We're being taught that. We were told that listen to your doctor and do whatever he says. And now we come to find out that you can't do that.
Yep.
And you start looking for other ways and other people who said, hey, these are different ways to treat these different things. And we found these other things over here. And, your doctor at the hospital is going, it's not. And who knows? He may be selfish too and not listening to Jesus at all.
Well, I mean, and that's the challenge, right? How do we animate these tools for good, right? And that's the thing. Like, why would we want to spend this time together? Why? I mean, it's what are we doing? We're just reminding you, right? We're reminding each other. That's what Ray and I do, right? You came in this morning, you're like, dude, we haven't spent time. And I'm like, let's get on the stream. And it's like, why? Because it's helpful. It's helpful to be reminded, and it's helpful to sharpen each other. And because, dude, we so frequently and so often forget, and then we get caught in something, we get frustrated by it, and we get fearful about it. And the unknown is like, man, and this is this is where FUD lives, you know. But if we don't remind each other, and I think that's a big part of all of this, is that God has given us each other in community to basically say, all right, let's remind ourselves of what is true. And it's so cool, you're right, to see it in your kids when they are recognizing the fact that they are, Jesus himself was, not that it was just an anti-government thing, but it was so interesting to see things like, hey, whose face is on the money? Yeah, and it came out of the fish's mouth, and you're like, "Give to Caesar what is Caesar's," and recognize that they even co-opted the beginning. They co-opted, it was Caesar as Lord, and they were like, "No, we're gonna change the motto, dude." It's like you wrote over the the poster that's glued to the wall, and instead of Caesar's Lord, it's like, no, Jesus is Lord. And you're like, hold on a second, this is about the most politically defiant thing you could do at that time. And then they're like, he's the king of the Jews, using these political things. At the end of the day, when you start recognizing the fact that Jesus is alive and he speaks, he's not some historical dead Jesus, he's an alive Jesus. Well, then he's a shepherd out front, he speaks, and literally we're to follow that because we recognize his voice. Everything, literally, all that we need comes direct. It is not through a middleman. And everybody wants to get in the way. Everyone. I mean, that's why people are so frustrated about the church itself, right? And they're like, oh, there's hypocritical Christians. Well, yeah, that's because we're following people who are broken rather than following the one who created it all. And that's what's so amazing about all this decentralization that's happening in the world, because in the past, in the 1850s or the 1790s, you're following whatever was local, right? Daddy was a Quaker, so you're going to be Quaker, right? And you're like, well, hang on a second. Access. I mean, even Jesus said this to the woman, there will be a time when you will, worship in spirit and in truth, not on this mountain, right? And of course that came to pass, right? The veil was torn from the top down, and we have direct access. The Spirit of God is in us. And literally, that's the most amazing thing about this, is that the blockchain is just a reflection of this. Even ChatGPT is a reflection of the creation, is that we just keep reproducing the things, building golden calves. The question is, are we going to take these tools of the blockchain? Are we going to take these tools of AI, and are we going to animate those for good? And are we going to essentially fulfill the purpose and calling that he is working out in the world? Because here's the thing, folks. I don't care what you think. I don't care what, Putin thinks or Biden thinks or any of these people think. You will stand before him one day, period. Whether you bow in obligation or in adoration, you will face him. And I think that that's what's so interesting is everybody wants to, hey, get you in, right? Thief on the cross. He's like, yeah, today you'll be with me in paradise. The hope that we have is, hold on a second, we could be actually useful to him, but we're so tied up in all of our man-made creations that are distractions. And so when I look at the blockchain and I look at what's happened with the Pulse chain, I look at this abundance and I go, it's not mine to dictate what you do. I think our role, Ray, and what we should be doing is saying, I'm not even, there's no prophetic word. There's no, oh, I'm going to give you direction. No. What is Jesus speaking to you? And I want to fan that flame into an inferno in your heart. And you do, and you get connected because he will make those connections. He's doing the work. We're just reminding each other, going, hey, he is the boss and he is awesome and he is the creator of it all. And of course, he's going to accomplish what he's going to accomplish. Even when he questions the Father himself and it's like, hey, is there a plan B or do I really have to be like nailed to a tree? He's like, no, remember what we decided to do? We're going to redeem this thing. And you go, yep. All right. Even to death. And you go, we have created all of these constructs that are really a middleman. And at the end of the day, what are we called to? And we've seen this throughout history with the Reformation and everything. It's just like, no, immutable contract on the blockchain. You're direct. But the question is this, are you seeking and do you recognize his voice? And I think that's the hardest thing is to say, I look at somebody like Steve who's been doing this for 30, 40 years, and I'm like, man, I wish I could hear Jesus like he does. And what does he say to me? He's like, just ask him, dude. Teach me how to hear from you. And they think about that. Well, what am I doing? If no temptation has seized me, except what is common to man? Well, these are common. Okay. Keep your nose clean, bro. Flee the evil desires of youth. Let's go. All right. So, Jesus, what are you doing with the blockchain? What are you doing with this abundance? What do you want us to do? How do you want us to encourage? What's our role? What's the purpose and calling of my life? And you think about that, and what does he give you in exchange? Rest and peace. And you're like, wow, this is easy. Yeah, because he's doing the work. You're his agent, right? And as you face these things, you're like, hold on a second. Like, give away what you want to receive. Rest in this stuff. It's actually his power. But we're so used to thinking, oh, I'm going to go change the world. We need to go change the world. I've got all this money. I've got all this authority. I've got all these resources. Jesus needs me. No, he's a father who loves you. His yoke is easy and his burden is light. Okay. Well, why don't we align ourselves with his purpose and literally say, hey, what do you want me to do this next moment? What do you want me to say? What do you want me to do? Right?
That is so cool. That's exactly what I was going to say. And I was going to, so if you guys know this dynamic, I usually, Matt will say, hey, what do you think about that? And then I'll say a few things. Then Matt will say, here's what I really heard you say.
Yeah.
And then you guys will go, oh yeah, what Matt said was awesome. And I'm like,
no, that's not true though. See, here's the cool thing. The Spirit of God uses all sorts of things. I guarantee you, David Lee is out there going, you know what? When Ray speaks, I totally get him. When Matt speaks, I go, blah, blah, blah. He's like, I can relate to that Ray guy.
So let me ask you a question. In 23 years, have I ever fed you?
Fed me what?
Have I ever put food in your mouth? I know it sounds like a weird thing.
That's not this kind of stream, dude. Yes. No, you have not. No, you have not.
No, I have not.
I'm teasing you.
But did you know that the next thing that you can do for your health is the next thing that you put in your mouth?
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. And you have the choice to make that. You have that decision to make. Whether I'm going to put this thing, whatever it is, whether it's a piece of lettuce or it's a cheeseburger, I'm going to put that in my mouth. But the beautiful thing about what God's asking us to do, and I love the fact that we talk about these things because it reminds me of the fact that the next decision that I make can be for Jesus, and it can be the greatest thing that ever happened to me in the next moment because of who Jesus is. He's walking ahead of us. And it's exciting because all the stuff you did in the past, no matter what it is, whether it's drugs, alcohol, women, like all that stuff is serving something that you were trying to find inside your heart. What you need in your heart is Jesus. And the next decision you make, it's got to be for him.
Yeah.
And the thing that we just don't know the Bible enough. We don't know enough about who Jesus is to listen to what he is telling us, because it's not just enough to just ask him, hey, what do you think? But you also have to listen and go, oh, maybe I should do that.
Well, and you know what's funny to me is you grew up in the church and I did not. And people, I don't know if you know this, but Ray grew up in a Christian home, went to church all his life, went to Bible school. But I didn't really come to know the Lord until I was 28. And of course, I lived a very carnal life before that. And Ray's jealous. But what's amazing about this whole thing is, you know, in some respects, the hokiness of it, I kind of call a little BS on it. And what I mean by that is this, it's so easy to say, all you just need to do is just need to follow Jesus, right? And I think about the church lady. And I'm like, that's hard, right? It's hard to understand as one who has gone his own way. For 28 years, I went my own way. And to hear somebody just flippantly say that, well, yeah, unless you actually understand who he is, it's easy to say, it's hard to like imagine, right? So if you're somebody that's, outside of this construct, you're like, these Christians are a bunch of bozos, man. And that's how I felt about it until you come to this realization where it's like he led me to a place where I had nothing left, Ray. I was at the absolute end of myself. And it wasn't just because I was doing great and everything was up and to the right. And somebody just said, you need to follow Jesus. And I decided I'd do that. No, he works these things out in us by like wringing us out, stretching us out. And it's like, that's why I look at this, I've almost thought through this idea of evangelism, right? And I've literally said, hold on a second. No, 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 no. Jesus is the one who does the work. We are his agents, created in his image, given authority to rule, made in his image and conforming to his likeness. And what is our role? Well, I've recognized my role is to encourage, right? There are all sorts of different roles and gifts and all this kind of things. And, he provides for your moment to moment, and he might make you something that you're not normally. But I think that when you acknowledge the fact that he's the source, right? He's the vine, you're the branches. You kind of almost like cast off all of these man-made conventions and you say, okay, Jesus stands alone. And I think, Ray, that's where we always come back to is the fact that Jesus is standing alone and he speaks and he's alive. And so many of us, even within the church, are basically say, well, Jesus is alive on Easter Sunday, but the rest of the time we're going to worship the Bible. The Bible is better than Jesus. And I swear to you, that is what I see even in my own church. Jesus is talked about as a Superman. He was wonderful. Look what he did. Let's sing songs
Yeah.
about it. They don't treat him as if he's alive. And then they put the Bible in the center and say, worship this book. And I go, no, 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 no. It can't be that way. That this book is a wonderful tool, but it's the written account of the words that he spoke, and he's still speaking today. And I think one of the most dangerous things to the principalities of evil in this world is the last thing that Satan and his crew wants is for you to actively listen to Jesus speak to you. Because all of it goes out the window if you're listening directly to him. And everything that you read in the Bible is going to fortify and reinforce those things. And if the tree doesn't have fruit, you better pay attention because ultimately this stuff has massive incentive. And it's crazy how the blockchain fits into this. There's all kind of in DeFi, there's incentive everywhere. Why do I provide liquidity? Why do I do this? In Jesus, there is so much incentive, but it's not the kind of incentive that you think. Like, I'm going to get my own desires met. I'm going to do these things. No, it's like this idea of surrendering to and listening to. He has good things for you. What's best for you. And like, I don't want what's best for me. I want to short circuit this thing and get mine now. When Lambo, let's go. And you go, "Hold on a second, what if we had a group of people that were working together and caring for one another in community and reminding each other that Jesus is alive and he speaks and that you need to stop. Sit on the edge of your bed. This isn't about like, I need to be a Christian or a Quaker or a Methodist or a Baptist. No, you need to stop and you need to ask him. And if you've never heard from him before, ask him, hey, teach me how to listen to you. Teach me how to listen to you. And I'll
You know
tell
what's
you,
cool?
it's amazing, dude. It's like it's a miracle of all miracles.
Well, you know what's cool is that we haven't done a Christians in crypto like this in a long time. And I guarantee you, the reason why we're doing this today is because someone out there that's actually listening to this needs to hear this message too. And that's how God works.
What? And it's a
He
reminder.
uses things that, well, it's a reminder, but it's also, wait a minute. Have you ever been sitting in a message and you've been hearing the pastor and he goes, and he's really speaking the words of Jesus and he says something and you go, whoa, he spoke right to me. So I'm just glad to be here. Thanks for doing this today.
Yeah.
And just realizing that we're all in this together.
Yeah. And that's the cool thing about it too, is every time I think I know what Jesus is doing, he does something better. Right? Every time I think I got it figured out, he's always got something better. And that's the thing I think is the encouraging word, right? You dealt with this issue because of housing, right? You had to move, you had to do these things, and you're like, what are we going to do? And you were afraid. And I've been in that same situation. Like, hold on a second, where's the next dollar going to come from? Where's the next thing going to come from? And then all of this stuff clouds, and it's like, well, and the bridges are slammed with, you can't get a transaction through, and all of these things we're critical of. And you go, hold on a second. Do you not think that Jesus is ahead of you? Is alive and he speaks and he is working these things out. It's like, why swim upstream when you can go with the flow? Well, what is the flow? What is his plan? And I think that that's really the key to this thing is what do we all want? We want peace in our heart and our home. We want to be correctly and properly aligned with all of creation. Well, ask the one who created it all. And it's not that's the other thing I think is important. It's not some like hop on one foot on Wednesdays when it's leap year. No, no, no. This is available to you at all times. And as you read the scriptures, you kind of realize if you continue to read the Bible in the context of Jesus being alive and speaking, it becomes technicolor that his whole point of this was, hey, I don't need the printing press to get my work done. You know what happened? There's a lot that happened before 1444. People were listening. Look at all the Psalms, man. They were listening and lamenting and all that stuff. And that's what's so beautiful about this is you're not alone. But the cool thing about it is when you align yourself, I really think that what God is doing is refreshing and drawing out people because he is arming you for the work that he has for the battle to come. And it will be easy and he will win that battle. But folks, this whole stuff that we're dealing with in crypto, you watch. The stone the builders rejected has become the capstone, meaning DeFi and all this stuff. Everybody's like, oh, FTX and Celsius and all these things. And, we talk to, communities and even governments are having conversations with government leaders and everybody thinks they know stuff. And I go, well, okay, I'm asking Jesus and I understand that, he's the master of the judo move, right? You think he's going one way and he's like, nope, I'm just using your weight against you. And that's what I see happening is that we have gone our own way and people have aligned themselves with evil forces. But here's the deal. The evil forces don't know the future. Jesus does. And what is the role that you play in all of that? I'm like, let's go. Let's go. Let's go. And it's so cool. And I'm impatient as heck, man. I want to see it all happen. But I think the big revelation for me is ultimately I got to stop saying, oh, I'm going to change the world. We're not going to change the world. Jesus is changing the world since the very beginning. And he's outside of time and he already has. It is finished. However, because we operate in the function of time, we want to be good agents, conform to his likeness and doing the will of the Father. And we go, hold on a second. Store up your treasures in heaven. There is a benefit. There is an incentive token to this one, folks. Get the incentive token. How do you get it? Listen to Jesus and do what he says. And you're like, put this thing right side up. And I tell you what, man, you're gonna see all of how Satan has used this to turn everything upside down. And then you've seen it as well as I have, Ray. You start listening to Jesus and a lot of things go like you see attacks upon attacks. You're like, man, right? We got to stick with it. You got to continue to listen because he's gonna literally refine you in the fire. And the beauty of that is there is a reward. And you don't just do it for the reward, but you just like, hold on a second. There's a father who loves me, calls me a son, puts a ring on my finger and says, hey, you have my authority. And in Haggai 2, it says, I will make you like my signet ring. What is that? That's the impression of the one with authority. And what are we doing? We're just representing him who has authority over us. And so I appreciate you joining Ramon on this Christians in Crypto. And folks, we'll do this more often. I've been copying all the stuff we've been doing with Steve Staggs on this channel as well. But thanks for joining. I'll say hello to 10 Cryptos here, by the way. 10 Crypto. What's up, buddy? Texican accent. That's why Jesus' model was discipleship. It is hard, but if we have godly mentor, we followed their example, then we become a mentor for someone younger in the faith than us, his plan. Absolutely. And you see that with Paul, and you see what Timothy, and it's amazing. Barnabas, right? You got to have buddies. You got to have those that you're pouring into. The discipleship model is such a powerful one. And that's really what are we doing? We're just reminding each other, right? And why would you tell your kids, like when you get up and when you walk on the path and when you lay down and all those things, remind. Dude, we've talked about this many times, Ray, how many different festivals there were, and everything was like a reminder of who God is. Like, you people forget.
Mm.
So the Sabbath is for you.
Yeah, it's amazing because, and I forget that when they do things like switch the calendar first day of the week from Sunday to Monday, all of that is kind of a plan to kind of erase some of that, what God did with the calendar thing. And I'm like, you know what? It's even the 7-day week is a reminder of how great God is.
The heavens declare. Kings, 1 Kings 19, Isaiah learned God's voice was not in the earthquake or the great wind or the fire. It was the gentle whisper, the still small voice, be still and know. Isn't it amazing? Well, that's the thing. There is some discipline of stopping, especially as men in this culture. It's like everybody's saying you need to be alpha and muscle everything. No. We come underneath his authority. And I think that what's amazing is where I see the most fruit is actually in the smallest of places, not in the macro. Everybody wants to be up front and be recognized. You've received your reward in full. No, this is at home. This is in relationships. This is whatever. And it's amazing too, if you're open to it and kind of hold every thought captive and pray without ceasing and listen to his voice constantly, you see just the world open up. And it's
obedience to Jesus.
Amazing. Texican Hexagon, thanks for being here. Looking forward to seeing it at Gen Con 2023. And just as a little promo, we're doing promo brought to you by Gen Con 2023. If you go to gencon2023.com, we're doing a generosity conference. We're going to be talking about a lot of the same content, but we're going to really talk about it in the context of what does it mean, calling and generosity. And I think a lot of people think it's like, how do I do my taxes in crypto? No, you'll be surprised what it will actually entail. So June 24th, we're gonna have a meetup the day before on Friday. Friday the 23rd, we'll have a meetup with Texicans and Hexicans and Pulsicans and Pulsexicans. Hopefully anyone around the Houston area can join us, or anyone from anywhere can come, fly in, do whatever you want. But it'd be good to see you there. And then we got a couple other people, and we'll wrap this thing up. Give us pulse to eat and water to drink. Hello, all my brothers and sisters in Christ. It's so cool to see people, That's what I love about this. I'll go to these meetups with you, Ray, and it's like nobody wants to talk about crypto with us. They want to talk about Jesus. And it's so cool. It's so cool to see. We've seen that so many times, but it's like, hey, behind the scenes, it's like, all right, he's at work. He's at work. He's at work. Um, Blessed is the one who perseveres under trial, because having stood the test, that person will receive the crown of life that the Lord has promised to those who love him. Amen. That's the incentive token. Isn't that right? It's like store up your treasures in
Okay,
heaven. The incentive token.
can I say this? And this is a whole different concept that maybe we can unpack next time.
Okay, go.
How many times have you guys had conversations with people about crypto, and they're like, "Oh, I know FTX. Isn't
Yeah.
that Bankman kid
Yep.
who took all that money? Isn't that wrong?
Yep.
Isn't it just Bitcoin?" And you're like, "No, no." You're like, blockchain is so much more than that. Decentralized finance is so much more than just what you saw in the news about Celsius.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with Jesus. The church is almost saying, no, this is what crypto looks like.
That's really good,
And
Ray.
Jesus is saying, no, start listening to me and I'll show you what true DeFi is like.
Well,
What a true, I mean, it's amazing because people are like, oh yeah, that crypto stuff,
Yeah.
government. No, government doesn't give you your right to crypto. God gives you your right to breathe.
Yeah. That's a really really good example. Is this idea of equating, FTX to, basically you're being told, and you're what you're really doing is you're outsourcing the listening to Jesus to someone else. Don't outsource it to someone else. Do it yourself. Right? This is like holding your own keys to your crypto in your own non-custodial wallet. You have the keys to the kingdom, my friends, meaning you have access to the king. And it's like, why would you give that away to someone else? And I'm not saying that you're not in community in a local church. I'm not saying that at all. But I think that, what are these things for? Well, Acts 2:42 talks about committing themselves to the disciples' teaching, to breaking of bread, right? Right? These were these things that they shared with one another, they cared for one another. That's what we're doing here. We're reminding each other, we're just getting together going, hey, who's the boss? But you're right, Ray. All of these things are set up to be middlemen. I mean, like, I just think about the confessional in the Catholic Church and the priest, right? That, they've got to put themselves in the place of Jesus himself, right? If I'm not administering this bread and this wine does not become Jesus, right? This is the ultimate middleman. And no, we don't worship on this mountain. We worship in spirit and truth. And what is it, right? It's his voice. He speaks. All of it is about that, right? Why would Jesus say, man does not live on bread alone, but out of every word that comes out of the mouth of God? Well, he's under the authority. He is the example, the firstborn, and we have to conform to his likeness. So we go, all right, what do you got next for me? And holding every thought captive, I think it's the most transformative thing that exists. And you think about David, you think about those before the New Testament, right? Jesus is alive and he speaks. He's been here the whole time. It was all created for him and by him. Like, it's just, let's align ourselves with the creator of the universe and his son. It's like, boom, let's go. Like, everybody's like, oh, what's the secret to life? Well, pretty straightforward, but it's not about following some religion, right? It's about following the living Jesus. He stands alone. So awesome. Crypto Compassion, good morning to you, my friend. Texican Hexagon with the last word. Love you, Matt and Ray. Texican Hexagon loves you too, Ray. Thanks for your steadfast work to keep people engaged and thinking beyond the present and beyond the pursuit of stuff, helping us set our minds on things above. It's all his. Yeah, man, we're just stewards, right? This is so cool, though. Folks, there's something special happening in this world, right? You shouldn't be surprised. But we are living in a time that is so consequential. And I think we're going to see Babylon burn, right? We're going to see this financial system, this legacy system fall apart right before our eyes. But where is the resource going to come to? And I really, truly believe, if this is any like teaser for the future, I believe that Jesus is taking the things that he has placed in creation to it be the stability of the future of money. That's a big statement, right? We used to have gold. Did man put gold in the ground? No, no, that's part of creation. What have we done? We've created derivatives of this stuff and we have levered ourselves. That's what fractional reserve banking is. We think about what this future is. It's going to be a return to Haggai 2. All the silver and gold is mine, says the Lord. Okay. All right. So it's a beautiful thing. So I'm excited about what this future means with journeying with folks who are like, all right, we got work to do, but I'm not going to stand in the way of what Jesus is saying to you. I want to literally stoke your fire, man. Stoke your fire. We're going to like, let's go. Let's go. Inferno, baby. Ray, thanks so much. I just don't know Ray yet. Well, by extension, you love Ray too, because Ray's my buddy. Tex Connection, thanks for being here. Crypto Compassion, Tank Crypto, good to see you, man. Give us pulse to eat and water to drink. Thanks for being here. Taryn, what's going on? Good to see you. Zoltan Toth, that's if that's any. It's like we bring it all. Cadium, good to see you. Mobius, good to see you. The great David Lee,
Yeah.
fantastic. Francis Powell, Mobius, Cadium. Who else? Casey Hacks, Plexican. Thanks for being here. Thanks for joining us on Christians.
Group of folks.
Yeah, it's fantastic. All right, folks, be blessed. Take care of yourself. Do not let your heart be troubled. But let's see what he has for us today, Ray.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right, take care, folks.